I never thought I'd be the one giving health advice at 73, not after what happened last spring. My confident stride had gradually become a tentative shuffle. My once strong arms struggled with grocery bags, and getting up from chairs became an embarrassing ordeal of grunts and leveraging. You might recognize this decline in yourself or someone you love, that slow surrender to aging that seems inevitable. We accept these changes as normal, telling ourselves that slowing down is natural, even as we watch our independence quietly slip away with each passing month. Sarah, my next-door neighbor who's 81, had maintained remarkable vitality despite being older than me. I'd watch her gardening for hours, easily rising from kneeling positions, carrying bags of soil that I would struggle with, all with a grace I had lost. The moment everything changed was when my granddaughter asked for help standing up after we'd been sitting on the floor looking through old photo albums. I couldn't do it, couldn't lift her small body without fear of toppling over myself. The look of confusion on her face as her grandfather needed to use the coffee table to stand hit me harder than any medical diagnosis ever could. I had always believed I was doing everything right for my health. Every morning, like clockwork, I laced up my walking shoes and completed my 3-mile route through the neighborhood, rain or shine, convinced this dedication was my ticket to lasting mobility. You've probably heard it too, that walking is the perfect exercise for seniors. It's what doctors recommend, what health magazines promote, what everyone seems to believe is the golden ticket to healthy aging. I had clung to this belief with religious fervor. Dr. Martinez, my new physician who specializes in geriatric health, listened patiently during my annual physical as I proudly described my walking regimen. Her response was gentle but eye-opening. Walking is wonderful, but on its own, it's not enough to preserve the strength and function you'll need for true independence. Her words struck me as both revelatory and obvious, like being told the earth is round when you've somehow convinced yourself it was flat despite all evidence to the contrary. I'd been working hard at my health, but missing critical pieces of the puzzle that would ultimately determine my quality of life. I learned that day about sarcopenia, the natural loss of muscle mass that accelerates after 50. Despite my faithful walking routine, I had been losing roughly 1% of my muscle mass yearly since turning 50, and walking alone couldn't stop this invisible thief. You might not notice this decline immediately. It's insidious, creeping into your life disguised as normal aging. But there's nothing normal about struggling to carry groceries, feeling unsteady on slight inclines, or needing help to rise from a chair. These are signs of muscle loss that can be prevented. Michael, a former marathon runner who lived in my retirement community, had experienced a similar revelation. He'd maintained his walking routine into his 80s, but found himself increasingly frail despite covering impressive distances. I could walk 10 miles, he told me, but couldn't lift my suitcase into the overhead compartment when visiting my daughter. The science was clear. Our bodies need resistance to maintain strength, and walking provides minimal resistance. Each step we take uses the same muscles in the same way, never challenging them to grow stronger or even maintain what strength remains. The constant repetition without variation was maintaining my endurance, but silently allowing my muscles to weaken. I started with simple changes, incorporating basic strength exercises into my routine 3 times weekly. Wall push-ups, standing from a chair without using my hands, and squats while holding onto my kitchen counter became my new normal. You don't need fancy equipment or gym memberships to begin this transformation. My resistance bands, colorful strips of elastic that cost less than a dinner out, became powerful tools against aging. With them, I could strengthen muscles that had grown dormant despite my thousands of walking steps. Jennifer, the physical therapist who designed my program, emphasized quality over quantity. 2 properly performed squat exercises, she explained, will do more for maintaining your independence than 2,000 steps. She showed me how even household items could become strength training tools: soup cans for bicep curls, water bottles for shoulder exercises. The first 2 weeks were humbling as I discovered how weak I'd become despite my active lifestyle. Muscles I didn't know existed announced themselves through soreness, but there was something profoundly satisfying about feeling my body respond. Unlike the mindless ease of walking, these exercises required presence, attention, and a willingness to push against resistance, much like life itself. I hadn't realized how compromised my balance had become until I tried standing on one foot. Something that had once been effortless now seemed nearly impossible without holding on to something. This loss of stability explained my growing fear of uneven sidewalks and stairs without railings. You might be compensating for poor balance without realizing it. Avoiding certain movements, always keeping a hand near walls or furniture, taking extra wide turns. These adaptations happen so gradually that they become invisible to us, yet they signal a declining system that walking alone cannot recalibrate. Robert, who had fallen twice in his garden last year, shared with me the balance routine his doctor prescribed. It seemed silly at first, he admitted, standing near my counter practicing heel-to-toe walking like a sobriety test. But after a month, I could work in my garden without that constant fear of toppling over. I incorporated simple balance exercises into my daily life, standing on one foot while brushing my teeth, walking heel-to-toe while waiting for coffee to brew, and practicing standing up from chairs without using my hands. These moments required just minutes but demanded full attention, forcing my brain to reestablish neural pathways that control stability and spatial awareness. The stiffness in my movements had become so normal that I'd stopped noticing it until I began my new exercise regimen. Simple actions like looking over my shoulder while driving or reaching for items on high shelves had become increasingly difficult, limitations I'd silently accepted as inevitable. You might recognize this pattern. The gradual surrender of movements that once came naturally. Perhaps you've stopped reaching for things on high shelves, given up gardening because it hurts to kneel, or find yourself turning your whole body instead of just your head when someone calls your name. Emma, a yoga instructor who specialized in teaching seniors, explained that flexibility isn't just about comfort. It's fundamentally connected to independence. When joints lose mobility, she said, the brain begins to avoid those movements altogether, creating a cycle of disuse that accelerates stiffness and eventually affects balance and strength. I began incorporating gentle stretching into my routine, holding each position for 30 seconds while breathing deeply. The first attempts were discouraging as I confronted how limited my range of motion had become, but within weeks, I noticed improvements. Reaching the top cabinet without pain, looking over my shoulder while backing up the car, and most meaningfully, being able to play on the floor with my grandchildren without dreading the moment I'd have to get up. My lower back pain had become a constant companion, something I managed rather than solved. I'd tried heating pads, creams, and occasional pain relievers, but Dr. Martinez explained that my weakened core muscles were likely the real culprit behind my discomfort. You might think of core strength as something for fitness enthusiasts with washboard abs, but in reality, these central muscles are essential for everyday movements and protecting your spine. When they weaken, your posture changes, placing stress on vertebrae and surrounding tissues. Thomas, who had suffered from chronic back pain for years, shared how core strengthening exercises had transformed his life. I spent thousands on treatments that only provided temporary relief, he told me. But 15 minutes of core exercises daily has done what expensive therapies couldn't, actually solve the problem at its source. I learned gentle abdominal contractions I could do while sitting or lying down, trunk rotations that improved my twisting mobility, and proper posture adjustments that immediately reduced strain on my back. These exercises weren't strenuous but required awareness and consistency, qualities that walking alone, despite its cardiovascular benefits, couldn't develop. If you've enjoyed this story so far and found value in these insights about healthy aging, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me continue sharing these important messages with others who might benefit. Now, let's continue our journey together and discover even more ways to maintain vitality as we age. The occasional knee pain I experienced after my walks had seemed like a reasonable trade-off for staying active. I accepted the discomfort as the cost of fitness, unaware that this approach might actually accelerate joint deterioration rather than prevent it. You might be experiencing similar trade-offs, pushing through discomfort for the sake of staying active, not realizing that modifying your approach could eliminate the need for this painful bargain. Our joints require movement to stay healthy, but can be damaged by repetitive impact without proper support. Linda, who had developed arthritis in her 50s, discovered that swimming 3 days a week transformed her mobility. The water supported my weight while allowing full range of motion, she explained. After 2 months, I could move with less pain on land too, because my joints were being nourished without being stressed. I began complementing my walking with low-impact activities like swimming and stationary cycling, which provided movement patterns that nourished my joints without the constant impact of feet striking pavement. I also learned that strengthening the muscles around joints provides crucial support, creating a protective framework that absorbs shock and maintains proper alignment. The physical improvements were significant, but equally remarkable were the mental changes that accompanied my new exercise regimen. The varied movements required focus and presence that walking, which had become automatic and mindless, no longer demanded from me. You might have experienced the meditative quality of familiar exercise, the way walking allows your mind to wander while your body moves on autopilot. While this mental relaxation has value, it doesn't challenge your brain to create new neural pathways or improve coordination. Dr. Wilson, a neurologist specializing in aging, explains that learning new movement patterns creates beneficial challenges for the brain. Complex physical tasks that require coordination and balance stimulate cognitive function in ways that familiar, repetitive movements cannot, she notes in her research on exercise and brain health. I noticed improvements in my mental clarity and mood as I mastered new exercises. The satisfaction of progress, holding a balance pose for a few seconds longer, performing one more repetition, or moving with greater ease, provided psychological rewards that transcended the physical benefits, creating a positive feedback loop that kept me motivated and engaged. What began as a solitary journey soon connected me with others on similar paths. I joined a senior fitness class at our community center, where the shared experience of rediscovering strength and mobility created bonds that extended beyond exercise. You might underestimate the power of community in maintaining consistent exercise habits. When we move together, we inspire each other, hold each other accountable, and transform what might feel like a medical obligation into a social pleasure with profound benefits. James, who had reluctantly joined our class after his wife's persistent encouragement, discovered unexpected joy in the group setting. I came because my doctor insisted I needed to do more than walk, he confessed. But I stay because these people have become my friends, and moving together makes it feel less like exercise and more like living. The laughter that punctuated our classes, celebrating small victories, gently teasing each other through challenging movements, sharing stories of reclaimed activities, created a healing environment where aging was approached not with resignation, but with creativity and courage. The social connections formed through shared movement proved as vital to well-being as the exercises themselves. My medical appointments changed as I became more knowledgeable about my body's needs. No longer passively accepting generic advice to stay active, I began asking specific questions about preserving strength, improving balance, and protecting joint health. You might feel intimidated by medical jargon or hesitant to question healthcare providers, but becoming an informed advocate for your long-term mobility is perhaps the most important step you can take toward healthy aging. Most doctors welcome engaged patients who take responsibility for their wellness. Catherine, a nurse practitioner specializing in elder health, encourages her patients to track their functional fitness. Knowing you can rise from a chair without using your arms, stand on one foot for 30 seconds, or reach behind your back might seem trivial, she explains. But these functional benchmarks predict independence better than any blood test. I started keeping a simple journal noting improvements in strength, balance, and flexibility, celebrating when I could perform tasks that had previously been difficult. These records provided concrete evidence that my comprehensive approach was working, reinforcing my commitment during times when motivation waned and progress seemed slow. 6 months into my new routine, I experienced a moment of profound realization while playing with my grandchildren at the park. Without thinking, I had lowered myself to the ground, crawled through a play tunnel, and stood up again. Movements that would have been impossible or painful before. You might have accepted certain limitations as permanent, surrendering activities you once enjoyed because they seemed beyond your physical capabilities. This resignation, while understandable, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that accelerates functional decline. Maria, an occupational therapist who works with seniors, sees this phenomenon regularly. The activities people stop doing first, getting on the floor, reaching overhead, carrying heavy objects, are precisely the movements they should be practicing to maintain, she observes. We avoid what's difficult, which makes it become impossible. I began intentionally practicing movements I had gradually abandoned. Kneeling and rising, carrying heavier objects, reaching into high cabinets. Incorporating these functional patterns into my daily life, rather than treating exercise as a separate activity. This integration transformed ordinary tasks into opportunities for strengthening, balance, and flexibility, making movement an integral part of living rather than an isolated health practice. A year after beginning my comprehensive approach to exercise, I understand that the equation for healthy aging is more complex than simply accumulating steps. Quality of movement matters more than quantity. Variation provides benefits that repetition cannot, and intentional challenge preserves function better than comfortable routine. You might have been taught that aging inevitably means decline, but research consistently demonstrates that many aspects of physical deterioration result from disuse rather than disease. What we don't challenge, we lose. A principle that applies whether you're 50, 70, or 90. Professor Jenkins, who researches physical function in older adults, emphasizes that it's never too late to begin. We've seen remarkable improvements in strength, balance, and mobility among people in their 80s and 90s who begin appropriate exercise programs, he notes. The body maintains its capacity to adapt and improve regardless of age. I now balance my walking with strength training, balance exercises, flexibility work, and core strengthening, not as a burden but as an investment in my future independence. The time I dedicate to this varied approach pays dividends in my daily life, preserving abilities that directly translate to quality of life and personal freedom. If you found these insights valuable and want to continue learning about maintaining vibrant health as you age, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from this message. Together, we can change how our society approaches aging, moving from acceptance of decline to expectation of vitality. Today, as I complete my morning exercise routine, a blend of strength, balance, flexibility, and cardio movements, I reflect on how far I've come from that humbling moment when I couldn't lift my granddaughter. That limitation, which once felt like an ending, became instead a beginning. You have the same capacity for transformation, regardless of your current fitness level or age. Small, consistent changes in how you move can dramatically alter your trajectory, preserving independence and enhancing life quality through your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Helen Mirren, the acclaimed actress who remains vibrant in her late 70s, attributes her continued vitality to a balanced approach to movement. "I don't try to look younger," she's quoted as saying. "I try to look and feel like the healthiest version of the age I am, which requires strength and flexibility, not just cardiovascular fitness." The wisdom I've gained through this journey is simple yet profound. Aging doesn't demand surrender, but it does require adaptation. By embracing a comprehensive approach to movement that builds strength, improves balance, maintains flexibility, strengthens core muscles, and protects joints, we can write a different story of aging, one characterized not by decline and dependency, but by resilience, capability, and continued engagement with all that makes life worthwhile.